evening, everyone, and welcome to Pure Tech. Kind of a little side spin off of Pure Delusion. Same people, same great people, but we're all sitting here today to talk about Ryzen versus Intel. There's been a lot of discussion about Ryzen once it was released, a lot of hype, and I'll just start things off in disappointment. I was highly disappointed with what I saw about from Ryzen for gaming, and I guess the biggest thing was it's not that the benchmarks, it's the price and what I'm seeing from performance. So I guess I'll start there. We're just going right in it.
So who's in the call?
Oh,
he didn't introduce us.
I guess I should introduce everybody. So we got Roku here.
Roku.
Reaper the Mad.
Hey.
And Tonders.
Hello. You guys look good tonight.
And me myself second. So
Did you guys lose some weight?
No.
I'm skinny enough as it is.
Not at all.
Seen me lately?
I'm gaining weight, so.
Gotcha. So I know that was a mouthful. Bit anxious, been waiting, to talk about this. So what do you think about what I said? I mean, you're looking at price per performance. Right now, I have up a Cinebench multi-threaded performance chart, which obviously you can see the 1800 owning, but
in synthetics, it does own.
Yeah. So let's get going.
Workstations right off the bat, we know that it's dominating price for performance workstation. Synthetic benchmarks, no question. No question there at all, really.
Soon as I seen AMD marketing at their conference, the 1800X versus that $1,000 Intel chip. I already knew it. I had question marks going off, like ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a chip that's performing as good as a $1,000 chip for $500. Okay, Intel has chips that's $300 that's performing as good as a $1,000 chips. Well, and let me clarify my statement. I'm a gamer. I don't care about all this other crap that's for servers and workstation. I play video games. How is it going to perform for me in video games?
Yeah.
And the $1,000 chip versus the $300 Intel chip in video games is not a big difference. So they'll market.
I just want to so people don't get confused.
Versus the $1,000 chip, it's like, why would you market it that way?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's the 500 Ryzen versus the 300 Intel.
Yeah.
I think you slipped 1,000 there. I just don't want people to get confused.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm like, you have a $350 Intel chip that's performing just as good as the $1,000 Intel chip. So why would you market it the 1800X versus the $1,000 Intel chip? That's what had question marks going off on me when all gamers knew.
If you look at the tile, that I got right here, the photo, it shows you the three Ryzen that were released, the 1800X, 1700X, and the 1700. As far as I know, the biggest difference between the 1700 and the X series is the overclockability. I believe that's the only difference because you can see the wattage is a lot lower. So I believe it can't go as far as the 1700X and 1800.
So I believe today, believe he wanted to believe when they say it's confirmed.
I have a quick question, guys. So is the X is just like the Intel's K, like the K versus non-K?
No, all Ryzens are unlocked thus far. So the K is just the X, is just indicating a little higher level. But I'll read you something real quick. I think we talked about this a little bit the other day. As far as overclocking goes, if you've never heard of Silicon Lottery, you pay them a little extra fee on top of the processor price, and they will test your processor to see how far it can overclock. Or in other words, they sell you a processor that overclocks to your goal already. So, for example, on Silicon Lottery, based on their testing, as of March 6th, the top 70% of Ryzen 1700s could hit at least 3.9.
1700 non-X?
Correct. So the 1700X, as of March 6th, the top 77% could hit at least 3.9. And with the 1800X, as of March 6th, the top two-thirds or 67% were able to hit 4 gigahertz or greater. So, most of them you're looking at about two-thirds are able to hit right around the 4 gigahertz mark overclocking.
Yeah, something that I don't believe I have.
And that's all cores, by the way, all 8 cores.
And I don't have an image for this, but I do know when they did the delitting which is the process in which is very popular now. And looking at the quality of the CPUs, when they opened up the Ryzen chips, it was just golden soldering, which, they're literally using gold. The highest, quality materials are in these Ryzen chips. So I think if there's ever going to be a chip that we're going to see, surpass like the 5.0 and go further, it would probably be this Ryzen, because they said they've never seen so much care put into a chip. So it doesn't surprise me that the probability is a lot higher when the quality they're putting into the chip alone is a lot higher than what we see from Intel.
And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but speaking on that, so one important feature of the Ryzen line is that AMD has committed to using the AM4 socket through, it's at least 2020, I believe. I think they said 4 generations, if I'm remembering correctly. So, unlike with the Intel, where you get a little step and you have to buy a new $250 motherboard if you're about overclocking, or at least $150, you can actually literally just buy the processor, swap it, and sell your old processor. Yeah. So that adds a little bit more value back into the equation as you go forward.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean they've done this with this new one, in which they've released the Z270 for Intel, but they kind of didn't. All they did was make it backwards compatible with the 150. So basically, all Intel said was, okay, well, hey guys, guess what? The Z270 motherboard is more rich with features, and if you have a Skylake processor, you can now use it on the Z270 instead of having to use the Z150. Wow.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you guys know I'm streaming.
Okay.
Continue.
So it's like Intel basically made a brand new board that's backwards.
I can interrupt you and let you know that I'm eating a Girl Scout cookie.
They made a backwards compatible motherboard, which is in most use cases is not very useful. It's like
No.
So you made a new motherboard for your new chip, but you also can put the old chip in it. Like
so for $200 you can get a couple extra USB 3 ports.
Yeah. When you can just buy a PCI Express and slot it in there and boom. Like we all know Intel's money hungry, and the reason why Intel's so money hungry, obviously, is due to the lack of competition. While AMD's been working on this, Intel's kind of been on their 14 nanometer architecture for years, and Ryzen has just hit this threshold, and that's what Ryzen is. They're the old 8300 series, I believe, is 21 or 22 nanometer architecture.
Man, I've been looking at so many tabs, my brain is a little fried.
No, I mean, either way, whatever it is, it's older architecture than what Intel is on. Now, the future for Ryzen, and I think the biggest thing, which I guess the next thing we would talk about, is optimization when it comes to Ryzen. That's the thing where, at least for me, as a person that's looking to upgrade their CPU, is where Skylake is. It's optimized. They've went through series after series after series after series to finally get to the point of where they are at with Kaby Lake. This is the first Ryzen series. Now, the cool part from what you said is, hey, they're keeping this same motherboard. This motherboard is going to go across Ryzen 2, Ryzen 3, and I can't remember what comes after Ryzen 3. I believe it's...
they're doing pluses. Again, so a lot of speculation. I don't know that a whole lot has been 100% confirmed. But
yeah. But I think, that's cool, but the optimization, and it makes me wonder, are they going to be able to optimize these first generation boards for whatever they're planning to do with Ryzen 2, Ryzen 3? It's just so many unknown factors. And that's the thing when you're an early adopter of something. You want to believe, but is it really going to work out that way?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think we saw with the FX series CPUs, there was a lot of promises made there about overclocking, which they do overclock quite well. But there was a lot of promises as far as this is the future of gaming, and in addition to having weak IPC, honestly, they just never got there on the IPC. They did obviously get a lot better with time, but I think what Ryzen has in its favor is that we are getting to the point where these 4 cores are starting to hit some of their limits.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, IPC is instructions per cycle. That's how a CPU, that's the whole thing. That's how RAM, everything.
Basically a measure of individual how each core performs. It's basically raw horsepower would be a way of thinking of it.
So it's something else, like for me, and I feel like from a logical standpoint, AMD makes sense. It's like 8 cores. Okay, when they came out with the 8300 series, you were looking at, consoles. Oh, they were using 6 cores, and then the PS4, 8 cores. You're like, oh, well, this thing is obvious. This is where gaming is going. You're gonna need 8 cores, so you almost felt like you were future-proofing yourself, but that wasn't exactly true because what the i7 was able to do with 4 cores and 8 threads blew out, these 8 cores, the 8300 series is done, and what we're seeing so far with Ryzen, not optimized, of course, it's kicking butt when it comes to gaming.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So this next screen is from website CPUuserbenchmark.com. So you got the 7700K, 1800X Ryzen, and you kind of look at pretty much benchmarks and peak overclock and things of that nature and see exactly where they rank and the amount of points and kind of where one is ahead of the other. So I found the information interesting, and you can obviously see how people voted when you look at the value, because that's the thing. That's where AMD lost me at, the value. This 1800X, $500 versus, and this is saying 310, which I don't know where you can get this for.
Micro Center actually has them for 300 right now.
Yeah, I'm about to say 300.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a good deal.
So I mean, a couple of thoughts there that I'll throw out at you. So on the one hand, you can buy the 1700, and you know that roughly. Now again, we're getting into enthusiast territory here. This is a little out of the league of somebody who's just buying a PC. But you can buy the 1700, and you've got a 70% chance of being able to overclock it to at least 3.9 gigahertz, which definitely. I mean, it's essentially free performance. The cooler that comes with the 1700. Now, remember, the X models do not come with a cooler,
Right.
but the 1700 non-X comes with the new Wraith cooler, which is rated to 140 watts TDP. So I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. I think that's the Wraith Max that comes with the 1700 and lower. Some of the lower bend, I think, get a little bit lower. So, even possibly with that factory Wraith, which is free with the 1700, you can definitely be looking at the ability to overclock it and increase your performance. So the 1700, mind you, is, I don't know what the current retail is, like 330-ish. I know Micro Center offered a deal on the 1700X. So, then again, if you're like me, are you kind of paranoid that you'll be one of those 30% that is only able to hit 3.6?
Right.
So then you're like, well, I feel like I have to spend the 500.
Yeah.
So that's that goes both ways. On the one hand, the 1700 might be a much better comparison. On the other hand, if you're unlucky, maybe it's not.
Yeah, that's definitely.
And still, the 1700 costs more than the 7700K.
Yes, it does.
Still costs more.
Yes, it does.
And in that case, though, I think you're bringing the value way back more in line, though, because you look at, it's dangerous to talk about
It's in
future
line
proofing.
if you can get a good overclock. If you're not, if you're not big on overclocking like me, because I don't want to. It's two reasons. I don't mess with my hardware in that way, and I don't want to lower the life cycle of my CPU or GPU. So I typically don't overclock, especially my CPUs. So I just use them right out of the box. So whatever they use right out of the box, that's normally what I do.
So the projection right now is, and typically looking at these Silicon Lottery numbers, these are overclocks that the ones they're offering are safe for 24/7 everyday usage. They're not extreme. They're not running like 1.8 volts through the motherboard.
So it won't lower the life cycle that much?
Noticeably, it should not. I mean, there's always, anything could happen.
Yeah, you can force things, but that's the thing. It's called, and we need to differentiate this. It's a stable overclock.
Right.
You have an overclock.
Stable versus extreme, yeah.
Yeah,
a one-time shot of liquid nitrogen that got it there, or something like that. That's
well,
going to have.
for myself, like with my 8300, 8370, I was able to get it up to 4.5 as a high. It wasn't stable though. I just didn't get a good chip.
Yeah.
I could say for one of my 970s, I was able to get it to a reference 980, which was amazing. The other one I got for the SLI I'm running, I can only get it up 100 megahertz, and I can barely touch the memory at all. Like maybe 25 to 30. So it's not as good card as the other one was. So
maybe this is again. I think kind of like what Roku said there. If you're just not interested in messing with it, you're not interested in messing with it. But at the same time, the 1700, especially with modern UEFI, which would be the BIOS interface, or basically your motherboard's controller program. Yeah. If you look at like ASRock, it's very easy. I don't have a lot of experience outside of ASRock lately. Yeah. Right, and previously, some of those auto overclocks could even be kind of dangerous because they would just push crazy voltage. Yep. And so far, from the few reviews I've seen, that looks really cool. From the few reviews I've seen, it looks a lot safer than those old ones. You're not, it's not going to fry itself. Yeah. So
I use my board to auto overclock my i7. And I just want to say that it was able to get my i7 to 4.3 gigahertz fine. But I still reverted it because I was like, I do not want my thing lasting 2 years instead of whatever it could last. I don't know. I'm paranoid that way, so
yeah, no, it's
I always revert to overclock.
It's not strange at all.
So yeah, and then I think so. We're looking now at some of the. I'm not sure who provided these benchmarks. I did see it on Reddit, but I don't know that a source was ever credited.
Yeah.
This wasn't from Linus, was it? I know Linus.
Yeah, he did something that looked similar. That's what initially I thought it was.
Right. So the interesting thing is, the initial benchmarks, they tell you that, you have to either bench at 1080 with the best graphics card available, or even 720.
Yeah.
But one of the things you're seeing here that I find interesting is Intel's advantage, at least, and I haven't looked at every single graph on this, but Intel's advantage didn't seem to scale. So there's something weird going on when you go up to 1440 and 4K.
Yes.
You would think that if they were all things being equal, that it should scale or perhaps even get worse for a weaker processor. And that's not the case here. The supposedly weaker processor actually scales better. So that's a tale of something interesting going on there.
Yeah, no, I
what do you guys think it is? Like, why in 4K and 1440p? Why are they getting closer and sometimes the Ryzen are even winning? Well, it was losing at 1080p and 720. Like,
so remember,
I'm knowledgeable about computers, but I don't understand.
So remember earlier today we were talking about what is the game called? Wildlands, recently released by Ubisoft. And you were looking at like, wow, like look at how the 1080 Ti is struggling.
Yeah.
Excuse me, to run this game at what was it?
4K 60 frames.
At 1080, yeah. But when it went to 4K, it performed better.
Oh,
and I think what that is the same for Ryzen.
And just an interesting parallel.
Yeah.
Interesting parallel. The Fury actually was the same way. Its performance at 1080 was kind of disappointing. But as you scaled up to higher resolution, it actually got better.
Now what I think it is
scale-wise.
I think it's optimization. I think when it's just about crunching numbers, pure numbers, no optimization, hey, you throw this at this processor, it's going. Same thing for the graphics card. Okay, you want to throw all this at me, but to truly maximize 1080 is, I don't think, is as big of a number crunch as more of a manipulation of data. And I think that's where optimization, it's like, okay, this just has to go here faster. But when it comes to just pushing, and I think that's what the 4K represents for the GPU and for the CPU. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
So, it's like more, to me, and we obviously know that the GPU comes into play more here, but it's, I think, more of an extreme stress test. I suppose we could go one of two ways here when you talk about trying to get data out faster. And there's two forks in the road, or a fork in the road here. One thing is that basically the Ryzen is actually more like a dual chip. If you've read that info yet, so Windows gets a little confused, and I've seen people go offering counterpoint saying that's not the case.
I've read about what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I have read it.
Based on the architecture, it would seem to be true. Again, it's still very early to say. And then the other point there, actually, I just lost my place. I lost my tab. But so that was part of it. What was your thread there again? What were you saying?
Well, what I was saying was I was referring to the 1080 Ti for Wildlands release, and how at 1080 it was not able to perform as well as it did at 4K. And if you think about Ryzen, it was the same thing. At 1080, it did poor, but then when it got to 4K, the high resolution, it got better. And my whole point was the lack of optimization. The 1080i just came out. The Ryzen just came out. And I think when it comes to 1080p, it's more about moving the data around because you don't have to crunch as much. But when it comes to just a raw crunching numbers performance, I think that's why you see it do better as the resolution increases, because that's more into just a processing thing than a manipulation of where the data needs to go.
And I think a ton of people on Reddit would argue with us for making that assertion, but I think at some level, I mean, this data, I mean, it has to mean something. There just can't just magically get better. So I think that's certainly something to look at. And I mean, I guess another thing we could talk about is I've only seen a couple, and I don't have any handy. I don't know if you have a tab regarding some of the tests people have started trying to do with background applications. So whereas, you've got the 7700K, 4 cores, 8 threads, the Ryzen with 816, if you're running Discord, Twitch, maybe you're doing a couple monitors with other stuff. I feel like that's where it's really going to start to shine.
Yeah.
And since you pulled it up, another interesting thing is neither Ryzen or Kaby Lake so far are doing that great in DirectX 12.
No. And I think, that's an obvious sign of...
I mean, again, we're looking at optimization. So how is that going to play out as they optimize the X12, which, at least in the early time, has been favoring AMD's processor, or at least their GPUs. So how's that going to play out with Ryzen? That's an interesting future.
Well, I'm curious because, like you said, the background thing, and this is something that I saw, and I was like, wow, like this is really interesting. Because, you keep hearing about all the threads, all the cores. This is great for multitasking. But then you look at this web, JavaScript, HTML5 benchmark, and all it is pretty much just like, you're loading web pages, you're loading YouTube, all that good stuff. And then, you got the results here. And, obviously, the lower is the better. It tells you at the bottom. And right at the top, you see the 7700K. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I thought Ryzen, this is your area. This is task. This is, I use browsers. You have Java. They have HTML5. Why are you down towards the bottom? And that was something that kind of caught me like, what? And obviously it's not like way down, but I just did not think the i7 7700K is going to be number one when this is a background. This is what you do. You're on
so one thought here, and again, we're just this is some kind of amateur speculation, or maybe hopefully spark some further conversation for some really architecturally minded people. But you're talking about the heavy duty crunching, loading web pages. Really, at this point in the game, not that crazy of a thing. So I think that plays to the raw horsepower of the 7700K.
Right.
But then I didn't get a little bit small there. I didn't get to read it. But my next thing would be like, okay, well, what if you've got 5 or 6 or 8 windows already open? You've got Skype, you've got Discord, you've got whatever else going on. Yeah. Then what are we looking at?
Well, yeah, and those applications use something totally different. And I was just looking at this because I felt like this is more like just a basic thing. I am a tabber, like right now, and mind you, and this just shows like how petty we're really being about all of this. Like I have literally I'm trying to count the tabs right in front of me. I would literally say maybe 30 tabs are open between both monitors, and I'm not having any stutters whatsoever. So that just shows like how picky we're being. But you
Right.
know, when I saw Google and you know I'm seeing like JavaScript, HTML, and I'm like, oh wow, like, I just assumed this is the castle that AMD is building. Hey,
Because
everything
when
else,
you're spending hundreds of dollars, you want to know every minute detail, little or not. You want to know every little detail. Okay, is it winning by 0.3? Is it losing by 0.7? I don't care. I want to know every detail about what I'm spending hundreds of dollars on.
true.
I know we're being petty, but that's how it is.
Well, that's part of being an enthusiast.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And I guess it comes to a dichotomy of enthusiasts here. I mean, I don't know if you got another tab prepped up that you want to talk about, but are you willing to sacrifice 5%, which, you know, let's say you're even sacrificing 10%. And this, for a lot of years, I was just the max whatever guy. You know, whatever gives me the absolute max frames per second in games is what I buy.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. But now I feel like if I'm sacrificing 10%, you know, in frames per second, in a lot of games, you're boiling down to 5 to 6 frames per second.
Well, you know what I'll say, Jeff? What I think it is? I think after a while, and I just think there's just, I don't know if there's phases, but there are people that like to tinker. And I think what's always interesting for AMD is they always do things a little different, and you can kind of tinker a bit more until I feel like they release it, you know what it can do, but there's always like this like mystique that's going on. So like for me, like when I had to choose before getting the i5 or you know the 8370, I was like, oh well, I can just get an i5, you know, everyone says it's great for games. But then you know you look at the 8300 series, like, oh wow, they got all those cores. You know, well, I can overclock it even more. Maybe I can get it to 5.0. You know, and you know, but the tinker in me wanted to see what I could do with it. So and it was cheaper. That was also the thing. It was cheaper.
I mean, I'll give you a quick counterpoint. Like my build, I could have gone with the 3570K or the 3770K. And I don't know if you recall or not, but even now the i5s occasionally beat. Well, I'm talking about previous generations in modern benchmarks, but previous i5s will beat the i7s at gaming. And that was the case then. And now, mind you, then I don't remember exact numbers, but I want to say it was by an even smaller margin. I mean, I think the 3570K was beating the 3770K by like 1 to 2%. And I'm like, well, that's it for me. I'm getting the 3570K and saving, you know, whatever it was, $80, $100. And I think with the Ryzen launch, you know, I think I'm feeling a little bit of that tinkering urge. It's you know, sacrifice maybe 6 FPS. Some games which have bad optimization, yes, it's a lot more right now. But I think the appeal to me is sacrifice maybe 6 or 7 frames per second, which I'm already getting over 100, so I'm not going to really notice. I mean, I'm getting over 120. I'm not a CS:GO player. Yeah. You know, I'll take the interesting tinkering option, the underdog. And I mean, who doesn't love to root for an underdog? Yeah, I think that's the appeal to me, is that it's an option that's really it's good at a lot of things. It's not that much worse in gaming, but it's kind of like that the undiscovered country. You know, what does the future hold?
Yeah, I'm about to say, and that's like kind of betting on the future and betting on AMD, because it could get a lot better in the future. Like, we don't know, because most games right now are developed on Intel platforms. As games start getting developed like with Ryzen in mind, it could get a whole lot better in the future.
And for me, like, you know, where I'm at is it's like, okay, I know how I am. I have had my computer for like a year and a half. I started off on air. In that year and a half, I went to water cooling. I went to 32 gigs of RAM. I went to SLI, custom cabling. Like, it is obvious that I just want more. I just constantly keep pushing. So for me, if I invest and go ahead and get an 1800X, when Ryzen 2 comes out, I'm not gonna want to get a Ryzen. You see what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm thinking like, why don't I just get a Kaby Lake right now? Because it's going to probably not be till Ryzen 3 where they truly hit their stride, and they're just, you know, if their tech is truly the shit, where they're just blowing Intel away. And then I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'll just get that.
I think that's definitely valid too. I mean, especially if you're on even if you're an enthusiast, that doesn't mean you have an unlimited budget. So
yeah, true.
That's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, but I'm thinking 3 years down the line.
And maybe if I go Ryzen 3 years down the line, I'll be like, I told you so.
Oh, no, I have no problem. I have no problem. Yep, you're right. But right now, it's just like, I'm saving money. That's the thing. Like, I'm saving money. Going Intel. Like, these words.
You know how I feel.
Like, I'm like, and I'm cheap. Ricky knows I'm cheap. And, well, it's weird. I'm cheap, but then when I want something, I don't care how much it costs. So
the other thing that it totally.
$160 for a water cooler because it had fucking LED mirrored light, and I thought it looked badass, and I didn't care how much it was because of how cool it looked. So but here I am arguing over difference probably about 160 between one processor to the next.
So the other interesting thing is going to be, and it's only speculation that it could possibly just totally invalidate or change this conversation, is when they release the 6-core Ryzens, because all points would indicate that they're going to perform similarly. Yet what are those going to cost?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Which
aren't
is,
they releasing
Q2.
4 cores as well? Aren't they releasing 4-core versions as well?
Yeah.
Or is it 6 cores?
No. Yep. You are correct. There's going to be 4s and there's going to be a 6.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a shot of it now.
I think the 4 is going to, and I'm just guessing, and forgive me because again I've been just reading so much. It's the Intel G. What is it? Are you talking about
Coffee Lake?
No, the current processor. It's like the super budget build. It's only like $80. It's the Intel G42. I'm trying to remember what it is here. I'd have to go to Micro Center. Let's see here.
All right. Well, while you're looking that up, so like you can see here on this website, they had some tests, some benchmarks of what they found, and once again, this is exactly what we've been talking about. So you look at the 1700X. Well, not the 6800, but here we go. So 1700, which is the value one, 329 usually, versus a i7 7700K gaming benchmarks. Now, when I look at something like this, it's like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. They're damn close. Damn, like not getting blown away. Now, when I see stuff like GTA 5 56 frames, now I'm kind of curious, like what happened there.
And I know GTA 5 is one of the outliers right now. There's some optimization issues.
Yeah.
For AMD, but for everything else, like GTA 5, the one of the most optimized games out there. It performs well in 4K and everything. That was the one. I think that's the best PC ported game of all time. They did everything great with that port. But it's not performing well for AMD?
It's not performing well for either, honestly.
The numbers aren't great, and I wish when they say like gaming benchmarks 99th percent. Like I don't know if that's saying like the men's, the lowest it got to, because you look at the one above it. I'm assuming that's what it is. The average for the 1700 is 167 frames. The average for the 7700K, 190 frames. And then you go down, then it drops for Intel 85, drops for AMD 56. But I'm not exactly sure what they're getting at.
And they have that game has the most options I've ever seen. I don't know. When I think of a badly optimized game, I think of like Wildlands. Like that game is horrifically optimized. So I don't know. GTA 5, it was the opposite. That's the good thing wrong. Great.
So I'm sorry. I figured I remembered the numbers. I couldn't remember if it was a G30, G40. It's the G4560, which is $65. And right now the performance per dollar is off the charts. So technically right now you could get something like that, but it's going to be extremely limited after this year. It's basically limited on cores, and that's what I kind of look at with some of these options is, we're not full-fledged into multi-core mode yet, but we're a lot closer than we've thought we were for the last 7-8 years, 5-6 years.
And and that's just where like I'm at. I'm like, Yeah, we keep talking about this, but when is the video game industry actually going to program for this? Like, where this is like, hey, you have to have this to really. I just don't know, because I thought it would have been this generation. I thought,
and I think part of that is what you're going to see just by the Ryzen release, the 6-core Ryzens, the 4-core Ryzens. They're going to be priced so low. Well, my point originally was that the 4-core Ryzen will probably knock that Intel off the top of the charts. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say what exactly it'll be priced
right
at.
Here. So you got your R5s, and then you got R3. So the R5s are 4 cores, 8 threads, which is like 7,700 Ks. Then you have a 4-core, 4-thread, which is comparative to their i3s, I'm guessing.
Right.
But, I mean, you can see it here, and then you got, like, the R5, the 1600X, which is 6 cores, 12. And, the thing which, for me, is, like, they're comparing themselves to an i5, which I'm just kind of confused. Like, because you say, like, that's an i5, but based on what? Because when I look at, like, a lot of the benchmarks for the 1800X, gaming-wise, they're dropping down to an i5 level on benchmarks. So, what? Like,
AMD marketing is weird to me as well.
Yeah, like it's just that's where I'm kind of like,
yeah,
that's
it's
marketing
just going to be
to me.
Yeah, it's going to be more interesting to see the pricing once they come out with the 1600 series and the 1500 series.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think still for me, the allure, even cost of performance, is the 8-core 16-thread. I don't know. It feels like the future,
I agree. I agree. It does feel like the future. It's just like, but the numbers don't support it. It's just like, is that the future? Like that's just how I feel about it. I'm just confused.
It just depends on how if Intel can keep making more powerful per core processors. They can continue 4-core, 8-thread processors that are more powerful per core. Then going to live on.
And I think I don't want to get off too much of a tangent going off of Ryzen and onto Intel, but from what we've seen, their improvements as of late are just only optimizations of existing architecture. So how much more is in it? At a certain point, laws come into play, and you just can't push it any further. So, that's what I wonder. And then you've got AMD coming saying, "Hey, we're going to use the same socket." So when you hit Zen Plus or Zen 2, whatever, I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably the most confusing time in processor history in the last, at least, gosh, I don't know how long. I mean, it's 2 or 3 builds ago for me, as far as, having a real serious decision to make over which processor to get.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot to choose from now. And the whole big thing, like, you just don't want to waste your money. Like that's the thing.
Yeah, that's why to me right now the 1800X is hard to justify.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, I think.
Like here's some numbers right here. I just
maybe the 1700 or the 1700X, but that 1800X, that $500 price, that's hard to justify.
Like here is the 1700 versus the i7 7700K, and like when you look at we're running on the 1080, and then you're just looking at it, you're like, oh, that's really competitive. Like you got it here on the Division DX12, it's beating it. Siege, it's beating it. Overwatch, they're even. Grand Theft Auto, 92 to 103. I mean, like, what? And this is the decent. This is the affordable one.
Yeah, like I said, 1700 and 1700X is like, okay, you can consider that, but not the other.
Yeah. Like that's where like I'm like, oh, okay. You just want more information because the first time, like when you watched what was it, Gamer Nexus, when they released it and they just said like how terrible it was, you just kind of were like, oh, wow, this is just terrible. But then the more and more time goes on, you start to see more charts and it's like
and
it's not.
No matter how much these reviewers want to say they don't have bias, it's hard not to show some lean in some way. Because there's people on both teams. Because you can't come out and say flat out, Ryzen is terrible.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard to That you can't say that.
Yep.
You gotta specify each chip and have a statement for each chip. Oh, Ryzen is terrible. Mm-hmm. That to me that just shows a huge Intel lean. to me.
Yeah, and I think I don't think anybody.
I will say, I'm sorry, just got to finish this because Gamer Nexus, he took a lot of flame and people send him death threats. We're not on that kind of crap. But what I will say is he was comparing an 1800X to a 7700K. So in that comparison, yeah, that's a waste of money. I agree.
Yeah, but even in that, you can't overview everything and say Ryzen is terrible. Ryzen has what, 12 chips, 10 chips? You can't say Ryzen is terrible. Say the 1800X is terrible.
Yeah, because when you
I think I'll throw in.
Oh, go ahead.
Since we're talking about reviewers a little bit, Level 1 Tech has just done a good review. Linus has just put up some good stuff from Linus Tech Tips. Yeah. But I think Jay-Z 2 Cents, and we've talked about this before, but I think to put it in perspective for me is perhaps a 9/10 gamer. Jay-Z 2 Cents said that basically Ryzen isn't worse at gaming than Kaby Lake is at productivity. So again, that's kind of where I was talking about. Okay, it's 10% worse, and you're talking 6 FPS.
I heard that statement as well, but where are the charts that shows that?
Jay-Z posted them. I don't know if we have them up.
Yeah. Jay's 2 Cents. I mean, he's
a good.
I call him Jay-Z. Sorry, so I should clarify that.
I know you mean Jay's. I think it's funny you call him Jay-Z.
Yeah, it's just a habit from the first time I saw him.
When I first saw him, I thought it said Jay-Z's 2 Cents as well.
Oh,
but it's Jay's 2 Cents. Yeah. And he
I always
said
forget.
that's not that. Like he said that's pop. Like a lot of people call him that.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I don't care. I just thought I never did. So I was like,
I think it might be Illuminati. Oh no, sorry, no, that was another topic. But yeah, so he had I don't remember the exact numbers he posted, but you're talking, Ryzen, even the 1700 is within 10% ish, and it still really beats the 7700 at productivity. So I don't know. It's still tough. There's no clear-cut winner or loser. I mean, I think we can all agree, first of all, that 1800X, if you're pure gaming, that's a waste of money.
Yeah, agreed.
For me, like I'm a gamer. Anything that costs more than the 7700K is a loser for me personally. So if it costs more than 7700K, to me that's an L.
Yeah.
But the 1700. That's like
this seems like that's
the chip right there. Yeah,
that's the sweet spot.
And I mean that's the conclusion.
I want to see how the other ones perform as well, the 4 cores and the 6 cores.
Yeah, that's the conclusion that the 1700 is the best buy, and you can either gamble on overclocking or not. But I mean that seems to be the best buy now.
I would love to talk to someone that maybe they've seen or read or know more. Like, what is the purpose for the 1700X? Like, okay, I get it. Like 1800X, like. This is your workhorse. You're a big time YouTuber. Your production, your graphic design, your CAD. I get it. Then you got the 1700. Like here's your more modest. You still got all that. You still puts up great synthetics. Blah blah blah. What is the point of the 1700X?
So I mean, the only
started this. That's why I was like, is it like the K in the Intel? Like, what is the difference between the X and the
I thought it was like you, Ricky. Like, I'll be honest. Like I thought the X meant, this can overclock. But now I'm starting to see. All of these with the the smart memory tech, the SMT for the cores, they all have it. They're all overclocked.
So what's the difference?
Do you know?
So I mean, the 1700X comes factory clocked higher, just based on binning.
Only difference?
Well, so the 1700 non-X is binned for lower TDP. So basically, you can get it's aimed at people who are running. And I don't know, I haven't seen the mini ITX boards out there, but you're looking at a lot less heat, a lot less energy. So it's the same chip, just binned for energy efficiency over stock out-of-the-box performance.
So 1700 versus 1700X, what's the price difference? 1700 is $329.99, right? So how much is the 1700X?
It's
$400. Oh, so it's an $80 difference just for freaking watts?
Well, I'm assuming so I'm on that Silicon Lottery, and what it looks like is a 1700X, more
overclockability basically.
But that's not even true. Like
a little bit.
The 4.0. There's 1700s I'm looking at right now that can hit 4.0. They're guaranteed. They sell them to you. Hey, this is 4.0. And it's a
But what is the
1700.
percentage of those chips that hit 4?
So it's 70% of 1700s versus 77% of 1700Xs.
So you're
Right.
paying $80 for a 7%
so, but
chance of a
here's a
better
fun
chip that
fact.
comes a little clocked a little higher.
Fun fact, and I'll go ahead and drag this over so you guys can see this. So this website, you can buy processors. So if I want it, and I'm got my mouse over it right now, I could buy this with the heatsink, with the Wraith, I assume, and I'm gonna pay $379, which is less than $399, and it's gonna clock at 4.0 gigahertz.
Right. And it's going to use lower voltage in doing so.
What the fuck is the point of this? Look at this. Why am I paying $429? Well, for what? And then look at
Well,
this.
again, I think we're heading back to the thing where you've got just even among people who build their own computers, you've still got a very small percentage that actually overclock. So if you're building a mini ITX, you're going to go for the low heat. You're still going to outperform a console by miles with the 3 gigahertz 65 watt TDP. So I don't know. I still think it's a hard case for the 1700X. Then again, maybe you've got paranoid people like me who are like, I want that extra 7%, probability that I can overclock it.
See, for me, I'm just thinking like, well, let me just buy this one.
So I'm a guy. I'm like, okay, I can get the i7 7700K for $300. What in the point is a 1708X being $400? Like, why?
And here's the other thing, Rick. Like what I say to myself is like, yeah, you know what? This is cool. Like, go back to that graph I was on. Like, this is great. This is amazing. Like, look at this. It's there. It's right there with it. But like, what? But do you you know what I mean? Like, it's so much. Everything's so new. It's just like Skylake. I know everything's optimized.
Yeah. Yep. That's why when I first because I'm looking to upgrade my GPU this summer. So when I was first looking to upgrade, I was going to upgrade my GPU and my CPU. But once I look, my CPU is still performing monstrous right now. So I'm not upgrading my CPU.
Right.
But when I was going to upgrade my CPU, I wasn't even considering Ryzen, to tell the truth. I was only considering i7 7700K. When I seen those reviews and I see everything now, the only chip I would consider is maybe the 1700, but I highly doubt it. The only chip I would truly consider was the i7 7700K. But you guys are more optimistic about the future than me, so.
Well, being with my past, like I know, like I'm just like, I don't know. And then it's like, like I'm looking at this graph and it's a overclock to 3.9. What if I get one that can't clock that high?
Right.
Then, I mean, these frames are going to fall. And,
and you're back into paying more.
Huh?
Yeah, you're just screwed. That sucks. You just gotta hope that you can get one that can overclock that high.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think really ultimately it's going to be interesting to see where optimization goes because there's just a lot of unknown. I mean, Windows, it was confirmed earlier, is already working on trying to fix the scheduling with Ryzen and the way it handles Ryzen. And I haven't had a chance to watch the whole thing and really digest it. I know Level 1 Tech did a Linux review, which had some interesting results, so that would be another one to look at.
Okay.
Oh, and do you guys think Intel is going to come out with a new chip anytime soon? Like, you talking about the future for AMD? Like, you think Intel just want to sit back?
Here, I'll pull it up. Their TikTok. You'll see Cannon Lake and then Coffee Lake later 2018. Early 2018 is Cannon Lake.
We're talking about all this time, like they're improving Ryzen. I don't think Intel's just going to sit back.
No.
I think they're going to have some better chips.
What was that you were telling me about the 7 nanometers?
Well, so the interesting thing, Intel's been having a ton of problems with the 10 nanometer die shrink. I don't know that I'm fully up to date, but it's still far enough out there that I think there's speculation. But they've been having a lot of trouble with it, I know.
Yeah.
So they're expecting at CES 2017. Now they're saying they expect some Cannon Lake base products to be available at the end of 2017. With the initial expectation was 2018. So I don't know. Maybe they've made a huge breakthrough. But so the interesting thing is AMD is already working on 7 nanometer architecture, and they're actually going to skip 10 nanometer altogether.
Yeah. And so you can see here on the wiki page, I pulled up for Intel. And I'm just going to start from the beginning because I think this is very interesting. Like, you look where Intel started, and on the TikTok cycle. And you know, you look at like, okay, and I think pretty much when they made their mark, when everybody was like, oh my God, look at Intel. It was when Sandy Bridge came out. Like I think that was pretty much, you know, the
right. I mean, even still, Sandy Bridge is a viable CPU.
Yes. Yeah, you can see right there, like the nanometer, like, you know, it's in between 32 and 22. Then Haswell came out. And mind you, you know, while all this is going on, you know, AMD is still working on Ryzen, which is on 14 nanometer. And, you know, so you can see they constantly were getting better. And you can see it right here when you get to 2017 after Skylake. Then you got the Kaby Lake, which micro architecture is in the Skylake family. Then they're going to release Coffee Lake, which will still be under Skylake, then Cannon Lake, which will still be under Skylake. Well, that's not true. Cannon Lake looks like it should be an in between 14 and 10 nanometers. Then
right, so Cannon does go to 10, yes.
Yeah. Then Ice Lake, I think,
but it's still based on the Skylake architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be it's a die shrink.
Yeah.
You would expect some efficiency gains, but we'll see.
But you can see right here, it says like TikTok optimization refreshes. So right here, Kaby Lake.
That's where they hit the wall.
Yeah, it's like so right now. It's like you said, like they're this next one, which is coming out this year, end of this year, going to 2018, because these dates aren't official. This is estimations. They're going to be here for a while. So maybe 2018, 2019, we'll see, you know, Cannon Lake, Ice Lake, maybe. But that just shows like where they're at in their cycle.
Yeah, it's just interesting. AMD just said, forget it. You know, we're going to go straight to 7 nanometer. I know.
Well, they're trying to catch up. That's what it is.
Yeah.
They don't want to let them get this kind of leading in because and I think it's because, and I told you this before, I think their revenue's too split because they're making GPUs and they're making CPUs. So I don't feel like they have I'm not going to say they don't have it, but I think the better business move is we're just going to have to skip this so we can get our factory set up to make this architecture. So we just got to decide, okay, we got the 14, and we're just skipping 10, we're going right to 7. So hopefully when they get there, we're there, and hopefully we're there first.
So, you know, to that point, I would argue also, though, that Intel is, while they're generating a lot more revenue, you know, they failed at a number of things. I don't know if it was the most recent, but the whole cell phone thing, that was kind of a flop. So AMD is, you know, with their GPUs and their APUs and all that, I mean, they've got the console market cornered.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if they continue to focus on just GPUs and CPUs, they're in a better position. Intel's had these failures and therefore higher overhead.
Yeah.
And not only that, but so if you look at the problems Intel had in going to the 10 nanometer, it makes only sense for AMD to say, you know what, we're just going to go straight to 7. If we have problems, we have problems, but it's better than wasting that much more time going to 10 and then trying to go to 7.
Yeah. No, I mean, I understand. I think it's smart what they're doing, 100%.
You don't think it would be? You don't think it's going to be to their detriment that they're skipping one and they don't learn the pros and cons of the 10 before going straight to the 7, that it could lead to even more problems learning the 7?
So the interesting thing is, you know, going from, and I could be wrong here, I might be, but going from 14, you know, and previously all the processor shrinks, well, not all, but the more recent ones, you know, AMD went from, I think they went from 32 to 14. No, I was wrong on that one, so never mind. But I think now that the technology is out there, I don't think they'll have any more problems doing that than they would have going to 10, especially because they're essentially, I guess in a way, starting earlier.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, we're just going to get on this 7 nanometer, whereas Intel's like, well, we got to get this 10 nanometer ready. So they've basically evened the time gap for their development, at least is what it looks like to me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Intel, they've been doing this well for a long time. And, you know, I'm definitely not going to count them out. I mean, it's going to take some true ingenuity for AMD to overtake.
How do you count out the, AMD's the underdog, so you're going to count out the guy who's on top?
No. I say it's going to take a lot for AMD to overthrow Intel.
Yeah, that's like I don't like AMD has. For me to bet on someone like I was expecting a Ryzen to not perform like they were saying, and like Intel just has that, like what they say. For me, I can buy it a lot easier than AMD. And my first ever build was all AMD, was full AMD, and I was an AMD guy because I wanted to go with the underdog. But as of right now, and that was about 7 years ago. And as of right now, it just takes. I need to see results from AMD. So. Like Ryzen or Ryzen 2 or the optimizations in the future, I have to see for myself. I can't just buy like an Intel or whatever. I maybe can even pre-order. I can understand they don't have to sell or market to me as much because I can kind of buy what they say. And AMD is like it's kind of opposite. I've lost it over the years.
And it has been a long time. That's definitely true in a lot of consumers' minds. It's been a while.
It's been a while since they've been down this road, and there's that part of me that just I want to support them, just because I like it. I like the competition. I like I want this. I do not want it to just be Intel because that just means higher prices for everybody. So I would like AMD to be competitive, but. It's still, you're just like, man, you're starting, you're early adopter, and that's scary with anything. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have ever kick-started anything, but, it's like, man, like, I hope they follow through and they don't just steal my money.
What game is that people are still waiting for from early 2012?
What the fuck is it?
Star Citizen.
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's another one, Shroud of the Avatar. Which the first MMO I ever played back in 1997. It's the same guy that created that game, and he's been working on it for years.
Star Citizen Star Citizen is the most kickstarted funded program of all time. But they just look so ambitious but let's get off the topic of Kickstarters.
Well,
that's just funny.
It's just similar, That's.
I want to see how our Ryzen performs in Star Citizen because I already got my ship.
Did you pre-order?
Are you not starting to worry about Star Citizen? Like,
we'll go off on a quick tangent, but they're getting closer. They have a stable economy.
2014.
Though they now have the stable economy, stable world.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. So.
And they finished Squadron 42, which was like the single player thing they were doing. So now they're all ahead on the actual MMO Star Citizen. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was so like I'm looking forward to it, but I was going to buy in, like I was going to kickstart for them. But the longer it took, I'm like, I'm getting nervous, so I'm not going to even kickstart. I'm just going to buy it when it comes out. Whenever it comes out,
I think that's reasonable.
I'll buy it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've seen some people who didn't spend thousands, tens of thousands on that game.
We all know that.
There are guys in the Shroud of the Avatar game that have spent, $10,000. I think one of the things you could buy was a castle that cost $10,000, and you got to have dinner with the developers in like medieval garb or something.
Wow.
I don't know. You want to wrap it up? Some final thoughts here? Or?
Final thoughts. Pretty much. I'm still undecided. I'm definitely, I'm leaning hard Intel because it's just more proof that's available. But I'm rooting for Ryzen because I want cheaper prices.
All right. You can go.
All right. I was just gonna say. So I'll say I'm kind of on the edge because my 3570K. I'm having a little bit of trouble with it, so it's kind of pushing me up to do a new build.
Yeah.
So that makes it kind of interesting with that pressure. But I'm leaning hard toward Ryzen right now. I think what would make this really interesting is if Intel had a 6-core chip that was in the same ballpark, price wise. Because if they did, I would be 100% going Intel.
Yeah.
But
it's the core thing because we know it's coming. It's like
right.
You know.
And so right now I'm still leaning toward Ryzen. I'm not fanboy status for either. I've built pretty much Intel for, like I said, my last as many builds as I can remember. I don't know. I think I may go for it if nothing else, just for the experience, knowing that it's not going to be that much worse. So we'll see. But I think first of all, I think we did establish that the 1800X if you're a pure gamer, that's just out the window. I mean, I don't know why you're not gonna get anything out of that right now, and I don't think that's going to change tremendously. So looking at the 1700, unless the 1800X drops in price, 1700 is really interesting, and I'm going to let it go. Hopefully, I can make it another 3 weeks to a month, maybe a little bit longer, see how things play out. But that's where I'm at.
Gotcha.
And my final thoughts, AMD, they have to show me. I was an AMD guy once. And I've been Intel on my newest build, which was a couple of years ago. So if I'm looking to upgrade, AMD, they're gonna have to show me. That's all I can say. If they don't show me, then I'm Intel. And with all the results so far that I see from Ryzen, if I was upgrading right now, I would be going Intel. Pretty much all I have to. And I'm just a gamer, so I don't really care about the other stuff. Just gaming performance. If I was upgrading right now, I would go Intel. I just have to say, AMD, show me, please, because I want a competitive market, because I want prices to drop.
Yeah.
I got to go off on a quick tangent.
Yeah,
There's no reason a new graphics card should be $700. But we have to pay that because the top of the line AMD cards are nowhere near the top of the line NVIDIA cards. And same with the processors. No new processor should be this expensive. Because there should be more competition in the market. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this conversation, please comment below with any thoughts, questions, whatever it may be. And like and subscribe. We would like to keep talking about cool stuff like this because this is only going to get more interesting.
And I would let me throw in. Forgive us. I think I'm sure we may have made a couple mistakes because there's just so much info out there, and then you've got people with bad info. So it's been a real challenge to try and keep up with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Day.